welcome for joining our first ever live Facebook session. So thank you very much. We're going to be discussing today lifestyle and migraine, but before I pass you over to our wonderful Dr. Katy Munro, I just wanted to let you know a little bit about the National Migraine Centre. So for those that don't know, we are a charity. We've been running for 38 years and we've been treating migraine patients for all that time. It's a really great service. It's quite unique. You can come and see us for a long 40-minute consultation, and you can simply self-refer. There's no need to get a GP referral, and our wait time is really short. We've actually normally just about 2 weeks. Sometimes it's only a week. So do look us up. We're on Facebook. All our contact details are on there. Just check us out. So I'm going to stop chatting now. I'm going to pass you over to Dr. Munro, where we're going to be discussing, obviously, migraine and lifestyle migraine. We'll also be looking afterwards at all your questions, so do keep them coming in and I will be checking. So first of all, I know migraine is a really common problem. Apparently about 18%, I think, of women suffer from migraine and 6% of men. So if you can let us know, what is migraine?
So migraine is a neurological condition with a genetic cause. The gene that you inherit makes the brain more sensitive to changes in sensory inputs. So changes in your internal and your external environment add together to irritate the brain. So the irritations cause the release of neurochemicals, which are like chemical messengers, and these will go and activate the pain pathways in the brain. And depending on which pathways are activated, it depends a little bit on what your symptoms will be in that particular migraine attack. So when you're thinking about managing your own migraine and what you can do, the word change is a key one. And so basically trying to minimise change internally and externally where that is possible, or basically routine is a key thing.
Okay, so when you say routine, do you mean sort of like eating regularly, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So eating regularly is really important for migraine sufferers. And you might say, well, everybody eats regularly, but actually we find that having an even, constant supply of fuel for your brain is really important. So the brain gets really irritated if it doesn't have enough fuel. So I normally recommend to people that they eat something every 3 to 4 hours, hopefully having breakfast fairly quickly when they wake up, then snacks every 3 to 4 hours or main meal, and then last thing at night having a bedtime snack to tide them through the night. Slow release foods are best, so slow release energy foods like protein and fat, and cutting down a bit on carbohydrates, which tend to be quick release energy. So the problem with carbs is they can give you a spike in energy, and then your insulin will kick in to bring the blood glucose down again.
Okay. So a lot of people talk about sort of avoiding certain foods. Are there certain foods that we shouldn't be eating? A lot of people say chocolate, for example. We shouldn't be eating chocolate. Is that
so there are some food triggers. A lot of people think that food triggers are very important, and they search desperately to try and find what foods it is causing their migraine. It's really more about the regularity of eating. So some foods certainly do trigger migraines in certain people. The kind of things like aged cheeses, smoked meats, that kind of thing. Sometimes people are sensitive to certain additives or sweeteners, but you will probably know if there is a specific food trigger. So it's really more about changing the balance between carbohydrates and fat and protein. So reducing the carbs in your diet and increasing the amount of fat and protein seems to help give a more even blood sugar over the 24 hours, and people usually find that helps.
Okay, so we might be able to eat chocolate after all.
So chocolate is an interesting one. It's got a kind of a bad reputation, but in the phase before the migraine hits, we call that the prodromal phase. That can occur about 24 hours before you're actually aware that you're getting a migraine. And in that prodromal phase, people get cravings. So sometimes they might get a craving for something sweet because the brain needs that fuel. So they'll eat some chocolate, and then lo and behold they get a migraine. So they blame the chocolate for the migraine, but actually it's a symptom of the migraine rather than the cause of it. Okay. So yeah, that's why you have to be a little bit careful with the role of food.
Okay. So what else can reduce a migraine attack? Does sort of sleep patterns, is that something that can help? Having
a good quality, a proper amount of sleep is really important for helping reduce migraines. So most adults need about 8 hours of sleep. Some younger adults need a little bit more than that. what we found is that people who have a shorter night's sleep or disturbed sleep, or people who have a lie-in and have a longer night's sleep, that is more likely to irritate the brain. So we're going back again, trying to have a regular routine of sleep patterns seems to be really helpful.
Okay.
So there's been some research about sleep and various different headache types, and migraine does seem to be improved if you can keep a nice, regular, good quality sleep pattern.
Okay, that's good to know. What I've heard a lot of people talk about alcohol, and alcohol can cause migraine, and also people talk about caffeine, especially. And caffeine can sometimes be found in medications that people are actually taking for their migraine. So what's caffeine about? Like,
yeah. So you're right. Alcohol is a big trigger in lots of people, and we have a lot of patients who say, "Oh, I never drink alcohol because it's a trigger." So be careful with alcohol, obviously, and it can also disrupt your sleep.
Yeah.
Caffeine, obviously, we take it to keep us awake, so that can ruin your sleep quality. So the advice about caffeine is it's an interesting one. It's a bit sort of good news, bad news with caffeine. So if you have a small amount of coffee or tea regularly, you may find that helps to perk you up in the morning and keep you going. If you start having more and more caffeine, and it is a bit addictive, so you do tend to crave more and more, then after a while that can actually give aggravation of the headaches. So there's been some studies that show that particularly young women who have about 100 milligrams of caffeine a day are more likely to turn from episodes of migraine into a chronic daily headache. And if you think that the average kind of coffee that you might get from one of the coffee shops contains about between 100 and 150 milligrams of caffeine, it doesn't take too much to get you a bit over the limit, really. So be careful with caffeine. But yes, some medications that are available over the counter do have caffeine in them. And that's because caffeine itself has a mild pain relieving effect, and it helps painkillers to work. So, but you need to add that in when you're calculating your daily amount of caffeine as well. And don't forget, the other thing is that caffeine is sneaked into other things like Coca-Cola, Red Bull obviously, but also some sweets. So chocolate contains caffeine, and chocolate coffee beans, I discovered the other day, if you have a portion of those, you get about 300 milligrams of caffeine. So yeah, watch out for caffeine. Stay clear of those if you're a migraine sufferer. Your brain is more sensitive to caffeine.
Okay. So now let's talk a bit about exercise, because some people say exercise is good for migraine, some people say it's bad for migraine. What is it?
Again, yes, that's true. It's both good and bad, depending on how you use it. So regular exercise 3 times a week for 30 minutes was found to improve some people's migraine. But a lot of people come and say, oh, I started doing exercise but it made my migraines worse. So the answer to that is to make sure that they're eating and hydrated before they start doing the exercise, and then also fairly quickly afterwards have something to eat and drink. I particularly say that to kids who are doing sports at school, and they quite often find that they'll get a headache when they're going home after they've had PE or football, whatever it is. So yeah, eating and drinking around the time that you're doing the exercise seems to be key. But in general, exercise is a good thing. But I wouldn't exercise during a migraine. Most people find they'd rather stay still and quiet in a dark room.
Okay. And also they say that stress can be a big factor for migraines. Some people always saying to me, oh, stress triggers my migraine 100%. So is that true?
Yeah, that's definitely a big trigger for a lot of people. So it can be increasing stress, or it can be reducing stress. So sometimes people find that they relax and they get a headache after that. So stress, it's everywhere, isn't it? Everybody has a bit of stress. I'm quite a big fan of mindfulness techniques. So you can do mindfulness from apps or from reading books, or there's lots of websites available. So mindfulness is a method of helping people to kind of live in the present moment. So I don't know about you, but a lot of us tend to think about what's happened and ponder over things that have happened in the past and spend our time fretting about what might happen in the future. So mindfulness helps people to focus on the present moment by techniques that possibly involve breathing techniques and that kind of thing. They've done some scans on people's brains while they're doing mindfulness, and they know that it does help calm the areas of the brain that are associated with anxiety and with pain, and it can improve sleep quality. It seems to also improve focus and concentration. need to just practice every day.
Yeah.
Some people might prefer to do yoga or Tai Chi, that kind of thing. And then there's another technique which I sometimes recommend, which is called expressive writing. Mm-hmm. So to de-stress yourself, just get a piece of paper and a pen and just write what you're thinking, anything that pops into your head for 20 minutes, and then stop. Yeah, get it out. It's quite surprising what pops up sometimes. Yeah. You don't need to spell it or punctuate it, just write. Mm. It's particularly helpful if you're trying to work through a problem or if something stressful has happened to you and you're just writing to try and make some sense of it. The idea is not to reread what you've written, but it's just to dispose of it, throw it away at the end. And that has amazingly good effects. Just need to do it for a few days in a row and try it out.
Could be good even if you don't suffer from migraines.
Absolutely, yes, it's a good technique for everybody. Yeah.
Okay, and if we can talk as well about posture, especially with neck pain, people sometimes say my neck pain gives me a migraine. Is that true?
Yes, I think posture does have a role, but of course we know that migraine pain is sometimes referred to the neck. Yeah. So people might think they've got a bad neck, but actually it's the migraine pain being felt there. The other place that people feel migraine pain is in their face. So sometimes people have thought that they've got recurrent sinusitis because their pain is really in their face. But neck pain is very common, and we also find that the neck sends sensory messages into the parts of the brain that cause the pain chemicals to be released. So a bad neck might trigger off a migraine. So thinking about posture, I always sit up straight when I'm talking about posture. A lot of us are head forward because we're looking on our phones or iPads or laptops or whatever. We tend to lean forward, and the head is really quite heavy, so any tension in the neck hanging onto the head could cause neck pain. And the other thing is we tend to be a bit round-shouldered, so you can easily test for that by just kind of feeling with the opposite hand. See if you can feel your shoulder blade sticking out at the back. If you can, then you probably need to just turn your arm out slightly. Feels a bit strange when you first do it. The other test you can do is stand up against the wall, put your heels back, and just see how far your head is away from the wall, because if you're very head forward and round shoulders, there's a big gap. So just adjusting, getting a feel of what is the correct posture. And you might find a physio or osteopath might be helpful to give you exercises or a bit of guidance, and Pilates is quite good for posture.
Oh, that's interesting. And what about supplements that people can take for migraine? Is there supplements that people can take?
Yeah, there are some supplements. It's probably a good idea to try one or other of them. There are 3 that have got good evidence. Magnesium, coenzyme Q10 and riboflavin, which is also called vitamin B2. Okay. So magnesium, the studies were done on a dose of 400 to 600 milligrams every day, and the studies were done on citrate, magnesium citrate. You have to take it for at least 3 months, and then that does help some people. Riboflavin or vitamin B2, that's the other name for it, is again 400 milligrams for 3 months. Yeah. And coenzyme Q10 is 100 milligrams 3 times a day. All of them you have to keep going for 3 months before you can really decide whether or not they've helped. And certainly a lot of people find those helpful. There aren't any studies with all 3, but it's up to you then whether you want to take 1, 2 or 3 of them. You have to buy them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we might go on to some of your questions now. I'm sure they're coming in quick. I know we had actually talking about supplements. We had a comment from someone called Rob who said that he was told to use 400 milligrams of vitamin B2 daily, and was asking if he could lift the dose because he still gets his migraines, and was wondering if you could lift it.
Well, it's a very safe medication or supplement to take, but there's no real advantage to increasing the dose higher than 400 milligrams. It'd probably be more sensible to add in one of the other supplements like magnesium and coenzyme Q10 if you hadn't tried it, or come along for a consultation and we'll just see if there's any other tweaks we need to make.
Oh, that's great. Okay, well, I'm seeing some comments come through, so I'm just having a look. We've got greetings from Ireland. That's lovely. Hello, Ireland. Okay, so well, we did have one question also about the environment and environmental factors that can sort of affect you. Especially in the workplace. Yeah. So like you know, if it's really hot there, or if they put AC on, what sort of things can we do?
I think working environment is quite commonly associated with aggravation of migraine, and that's for a number of reasons. So you need to just think about, are you in a stuffy room? Because I think air quality affects some people. What is the lighting like where you work? It might be fluorescent light, a bit of a glare from the computer screen, those kind of things can be changed. It is, when migraine is severe and chronic, it is considered to be a disabling condition, so it is worth talking to your employer about reasonable adjustments that can be made in the workplace, and there is a duty of care on the employer making those kind of reasonable adjustments. So yeah, fresh air, plenty of breaks, snacking when you need to, and staying hydrated, making sure your workplace is in a good posture, so you're not putting any strain on your neck. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So let's just have a look what else is down here. Can anything be done about perfume causing migraines? That's from Lisa.
That's a tricky one. And some people are really sensitive to smells.
Yeah.
Not everybody. Migraines are a very individual thing, and how it affects people is very individual. But I certainly know that some people are very, very sensitive to perfume. So you can certainly be careful yourself about what you are wearing, but obviously we can't do much about other people.
I guess if you're in your workplace, you could inform your colleagues, you know, like that's a trigger for me.
Yes, if you have somebody that particularly wears a lot of perfume, you might have to have a quiet word with them, with a smile on your face, to try and change their behaviour. But it is a tricky one.
Okay.
Some food smells can cause a triggering of migraine in some people.
Oh, really?
It may vary if you're sort of in that prodromal phase in the first, 24 hours before the headache kicks. Then you may find that you're particularly sensitive to smells around that time.
Okay. Well, we've got a greetings from Uncle Bruce. I don't know if that's for you. Uncle Bruce. Okay. I also know Norma wanted to know that she sleeps well.
Yeah.
She gets good night's sleep, but she wakes up with migraine, and she was wondering whether this could be a posture thing, where it comes to pillows and height.
Yeah.
Like, does that make a difference, or what do you think on that sort of side of sleep?
So waking up with a headache is quite common. We know from studies that a lot of migraines start between 4 and 9 in the morning.
Yeah.
There's a Dr. Alex Nesbitt who's been doing research on the link between sleep and headache types.
Yeah.
So sleep hygiene is important, so having a good environment to sleep in so that you get good quality sleep. So it needs to be nice and dark in the bedroom, it needs to be an appropriate temperature, not too hot. Going to bed and reducing the amount of light that's coming into our eyes in the hour before we go to sleep has been found to be quite important, because iPads and iPhones and televisions have blue light, which reduces the melatonin, so reduces the quality of sleep. So going to bed and waking at the same time, as I mentioned before, is quite important. Posture when you're sleeping, I think, has some role to play, because if your neck is at an angle or stretched or tense, then that might aggravate things. But we know that migraine do quite often come on overnight. So the other thing is, don't forget a bedtime snack might be helpful. And one thing to mention, if you are commonly waking with headaches, is just to check with your partner, if you have one, if you're a snorer. And if you are snoring, do you stop breathing from time to time? Because some people seem to snore, and then pause, and then wake up with a jolt. So that can be a sign of a thing called obstructive sleep apnea, which basically can give you headaches. So if you think you might have a bad snoring problem, or you may be pausing while you're pausing your breathing a little bit while you sleep, go and have a chat to your doctor about it. You might need a sleep study, and correcting sleep apnea can sometimes get rid of headaches completely. It's usually more common in people who are a bit overweight, particularly men who have a big collar size, but by no means only that size of people. So it can also be in children. So some children with big tonsils and adenoids can get a bit of sleep apnea. So check it out. I think it's something we've been increasingly aware of here at the centre.
Okay. And I've just been given a nice comment from Elizabeth. She said, I used to put lavender under my nose, and that helped block out other people's. I'm guessing with the smells thing.
That's
interesting. Might work for someone.
Yeah, as long as you're not sensitive to lavender yourself, it's a very individual thing.
Okay, well, I think we only have time for one more question, so I'm just sorry. We will try to get back to everyone, but so the last question I've got, Pen. She says, "Hi, I get over 20 migraines a month. Every one of them come in the night. Why?"
Okay, with 20 migraines a month, we would probably class as chronic migraine. It's difficult to give individual advice on a forum like this, so we would recommend that you come and see us at the migraine centre. Sometimes when headaches have ramped up to a chronic migraine level, it may be due to overusing some of the medications that are really there to treat acute headaches. Yeah. So it might mean an adjustment of the medication. But yeah, sometimes nighttime is a common time to get them.
Okay, well, I think that's all we've got time for, unfortunately. I hope you guys all found that really useful. Do remember that you can come and see us. Just go onto our Facebook page and click the Book Now button, or even just give us a call. It's all done on a voluntary donation basis because we are a charity. So we hope you can. And we will be doing more topics in future. So if you have anything you want us to discuss, please let us know, because we find that really interesting. And stay tuned for more.
Yeah, and don't forget, we see children and adults at the centre, so we like to see people of any age who are struggling with any type of headache. And as I always say, don't put up with migraine.